upside down.
Okay. Um, as you said, we're the Cannonbells Cheese Girls. Let me figure this out. There we go. I'm Deanne Lepkin. Uh, I have. I'm originally from Coon Rapids, but I live in Northfield now. I have a degree in meteorology, and I was an Air Force weather officer in my previous life.
Which makes sense to make cheese, right?
This is.
I'm Kathy Huff, and I'm from Randolph, Minnesota. And like I said before, I've been in the dairy business most of my life. I grew up on a dairy farm and owned my own cows for about 18 years. And then started in a whole new way in the dairy industry as a cheesemaker.
And our third partner here is Jackie Oman. It's rare that you get all three of us at an event together. Jackie lives on a dairy farm, married a dairy farmer, and she was a director of Christian education at a Lutheran church when we met. The three of us met through a women's philanthropic group, PEO. We met about 11 years ago. And it started by Jackie and I needing a hobby. And she had unlimited milk, so we decided to try making cheese at home. We started with a double boiler and her daughter, Grace. And then we graduated to turkey roasters. By the way, a turkey roaster holds 4 gallons of milk, makes about 4 pounds of cheese. We had extension cords going all around the house so you didn't blow circuits. My husband loves math. He built us our own cheese press. He could tell you the official name of it. As you see, we used free weights here for the weights. So that's how we started. It was really good. And we thought, well, we could do this because I knew I was retiring from the Air Force. Jackie knew her time at the church was limited. But we needed some dairy knowledge because neither of us knew anything about it. So Kathy to join us because we knew she had the background that we needed. So once we decided to start doing this and we brought Kathy on board, we created a closed Facebook group of just friends and family. Let them know the days we were making cheese. They were our test group. We'd say, we're making 16 pounds of cheese curds today. Who wants it? And before we ever started making it, it was called for and gone. And then they would give us some donations to help offset the cost. But that was a way for us to test our product. They were our test market. We had to keep it a closed group because it wasn't pasteurized. We weren't allowed to legally sell it. So we did that.
FYI, no matter how much cheese you make, if it's 8 pounds, 16 pounds, or 5,000 pounds, it all takes about the same amount of time, all day long.
Yes, it is not short. So I, having the science background, I attended the University of Wisconsin's short course on cheese making. In Wisconsin, you have to have this big giant certification, and it's one of the many classes they have to take. It's about 4 days long. It is awesome. If you're going to be a cheesemaker in Minnesota, you really should take that course. From that course, we found out about a consultant, Jim Gage. This is him here. We heard was the grant writing guru. And so we called him and asked him for advice. And he asked us a bunch of questions, and because we originally thought we'd just build in Jackie's old milk house on her farm. Well, that was stupid. So he slowed us down and pointed us in better direction. We then started touring various cheese plants. One of the first ones we went to was Lucas's farm, Redhead Creamery. And it was kind of sad because Elise told us it took her about 7 years. It's now been 7 years for us. So it's not a fast process if you do your homework and do it right. So we toured, like we said, about a dozen plants in Minnesota and Wisconsin. What we found out is that cheesemakers will share just about anything, but their recipes and business plan, they're very open and very friendly.
That was an invaluable piece of our beginnings, though. So if you truly are looking at setting out on your own as a cheesemaker or an ice cream maker, whatever it is, I highly encourage you to go to those places. Find those places, no matter where they are. And we were fortunate enough that they sat down for a couple, 2 or 3 hours and really went over their businesses with us and really gave us great insight.
We also asked Lots of local business leaders around us for advice too, like Ferndale Market. We did market research.
Um, Before we started out, we wanted to make sure that there was something, as when Becca was doing her presentation, so much of her information resonated with me because that is exactly what we have done or discovered. And so before we started, we wanted to make sure that there was actually a market for cheese or a specialty cheese. And we found that in our area, it's good to look in your communities too, and the demographics of your communities and what the demands are in there. So we found that for us, queso fresco was a lacking part of the demand. There was a lot of demand for it, but hard to find it in a lot of the local stores. So we came up with a good queso fresco cheese recipe, and it's ending up to be our cheese that we sell the most of in our community and around the Midwest. So that's really important for you to find out what is missing out there. And for us, we live in Hispanic communities, so we believe that a lot of that cheese is it's an important part of their daily diet. Competition.
Knowing who the other farms around you are, knowing how much cheddar's out there. There's a ton of cheddar out there. And what prices they're selling for. So can you match those prices? And you got to know that that's the store selling prices, not the prices you're selling it to the stores for. So knowing what you could sell it for, is it financially feasible? Yes. We need her to look real, but her eyelashes need to be longer. Next, we made sure we got a website and social media. We saved our name as soon as we possibly could before we ever made our first commercial cheese. And then we fought it for months, but we eventually went to the University of Minnesota's pilot plant to make cheese there. That's really the only place in Minnesota for you to rent to make cheese at a commercial level. They also have Ray Miller, who is the plant manager there. He grew up above a dairy plant. He's made cheese there forever, won lots of awards at the state fair. He's amazing. So he helped us transition our recipes from 4 gallons to hundreds of gallons of milk.
When you're starting out, it's really important that you find someone like we did with Ray Miller in the university. We were lucky that they do have this pilot plant program for us, and it's only an hour away because it is it's a challenge to find other producers who will allow you to come in and use their facilities because they don't know, what you're going to leave there as far as anything that would damage their goods down the line or using their equipment. It's a risk for that business to allow you to use their equipment, especially when you're first starting out and you don't really know what you're doing. So the university has a great program for those of us starting out in the business. And we got to use Ray Miller's, brain, his information, his experience, and that has been invaluable for us. Even though it's cost us a lot more money, it has been well worth the money and the time. And I was going to ask or tell you a little bit about the logo too. Don't be afraid to invest in working with a place like Deluxe to get your logo right. That's a really important thing. That's going to be your brand, and you want to make sure it's done right and it's done well. And it's something that you can communicate to the consumers and what you are about.
Also at the U of M, they have various pieces of equipment, so it was a way for us to try them out. With cheese making, you can use a vat pasteurizer, or you can use a pasteurizer and cheese vats. So it helped us determine what equipment we want to buy when we open our own plant. We could try it out there. So like I said, we love it. So we've been making cheese commercially since August of 16, and we still do it today.
We had completely different plans when we first came into this cheese business of the kind of equipment that we were going to use. We had it all figured out, before we made our first batch. Not so much. But we got to the university and we really got to try different pieces of equipment that helped us make the difference in decision.
Yeah, so we were also told we should join professional societies. So we joined the American Cheese Society. We attend their annual conferences every year, and they are invaluable, the learning you can get from there. Other conferences, like there's a conference in Wisconsin in April and Madison about cheese making, different kind of cheese conferences. We, as Lucas said, we're members of the League of Minnesota Cheesemakers too, getting to know the people around here and just sharing ideas. And market at Ferndale is organic turkeys, or not organic, they're free-range turkeys, and they also have an on-farm store, like what a co-op used to be. So they're just awesome, right there in Cannon Falls. As Kathy said, we were part of the inaugural executive training through the Southern Minnesota Initiative Fund. Through that, we got a business coach who helped guide us again. And we also became part of a local foods peer group there, sharing ideas with different food makers in southeastern Minnesota. That has been huge for us. Meeting different food producers, even though they're not dairy, they have ideas on packaging, marketing, things like that. We've entered various competitions to get feedback on our cheese, not necessarily to win. We just want to know, are we doing this right? And in 2017, 11 months after we started making cheese commercially, we won Best Queso Fresco at the American Cheese Society. That then brought us up to a whole nother level and made us seem less like bored housewives who think this is fun and more of an actual professional group that has a good quality product. So now, Kathy, do you want to tell them where we are now?
Sure. So starting out, we're new. Nobody knows us. And so making cold calls to stores and restaurants became part of my game. So people say, well, how do you do that? Well, you just do it. You call up the restaurant, you call up the marketer, the restaurant, and the grocery stores and ask who's working in can I speak to your cheese buyer? And from that, we're in over 20 stores now in our area. Becca alluded to the fact that restaurants are a risky business. We have found that they are challenging just because they're so on and off. Like they they want your product and they don't want your product. They want your product and it has to be perfect, which is great. But going with the stores and farmers markets have been a wonderful asset for us. We are now working with a distributor called Classic Provisions, and they have helped us grow in our market share as well. And I used to be doing, or we would do all the delivering to all the stores on a weekly basis, and that's putting on a lot of miles. We brought in this distributor who's in hundreds of stores around the state and in restaurants as well, who can get our name and our brand and our cheese out there much better than we can. So that's been a real plus for us.
Yep, so now we're up in Duluth. We go to different food events. We're going to be at the Food and Wine Festival, at Stone Arch Festival, different food events that you can find around, a little bit more than farmers markets. Plus, those wine people will pay more money. So, especially towards the end. They'll pay anything at the end.
What Becca alluded to before, too, is there's this real local foods movement going on. And I think it's just at the beginning stages, so don't be afraid to jump into this business. And I think it's just going to continue to grow as we go through the years. As she was saying, the younger generation, the millennials, they want to know where their food is coming from. For me, growing up, it was just food. We went to the grocery store, you got your food. Our beef was in the freezer, our produce was out in the garden. It was just something you did. But now people want a relationship with the producers of their food. They want to know where their milk is coming from. They want to meet the cows that are producing their milk. It's a different relationship with their food than it was 20 or 30 years ago. So I believe that what you are doing here, or starting a local food business, is a real boom. You're in the right track. Oh, sure. So we are years down the road now, which we thought we would be building our own plant already 5 years ago, but here we are, just now getting started. We've got stakes in the ground in Cannon Falls, in their industrial park, and it's been a long process, but we've had a lot of people that we brought in on the process to help us make plans for our plants so the flow is correct, and to make sure we've brought in our health inspector and the dairy professionals to come in and help us create the plans and make sure we're doing everything right before the building is actually built. So we're hoping to break ground this spring once it thaws, if the snow ever goes away. And we've contracted with a local dairy farm family. When we get our plant built, we are going to be using Audie's Square Deal Dairy milk from their farm. We believe they're just an outstanding family who do a great job with their cows, and we just love them to pieces. So we're excited that they are just down the road from us, so our milk is going to be um, real close by.
But the most important thing is our friends and family. We like to call them our interns. It's been invaluable the amount of people that have come to help us make cheese, package it, sell it. It's all been free labor so far for the past 2.5 years. So we pay them in cheese though. So without them, we couldn't do this, and it's just been great for us. So that's our story. And if you want to save questions until Jeff or okay, okay, we can take a question if anybody has a question for us.